In a bustling corner of a nameless town, where the scent of roasted coffee beans mingled with the tang of simmering tomato sauce, stood a quaint restaurant called The Lantern. It was neither the grandest establishment nor the humblest, but it bore an air of timeless charm. The wooden sign above the door, etched with swirling patterns, hinted at an elegance that belied the modesty of its interior. Inside, the restaurant's pulse was steady, a rhythm of clinking cutlery, the hum of the stovetop, and the occasional burst of laughter. This was where young Eli carved his place in the world. Eli was a slight boy, no older than 10, with tousled hair the color of chestnuts, and eyes that shone with an unyielding determination. He was the smallest cog in the machinery of the lantern, yet no one underestimated his significance. His responsibilities were vast and varied, encompassing tasks that most would dismiss as trivial, but which Eli approached with the gravity of a craftsman. His world was a patchwork of duties, scrubbing pots until they gleamed, sweeping floors to a mirror-like finish, and ferrying plates from the counter to their rightful places with the poise of a dancer. Each morning, before the sun had fully stretched its rays across the sleepy town, Eli arrived at the Lantern. The restaurant, at that hour, wore an air of quiet expectancy. The tables, cloaked in checkered cloth, stood like sentinels awaiting their guests. Eli's first task was to prepare the dining area for the day's service. Chairs had to be aligned with military precision, salt shakers refilled, and menus wiped clean of yesterday's smudges. These small rituals, performed in solitude, set the tone for his day. The kitchen was a realm of its own, a cacophony of scents and sounds that Eli navigated with instinctive ease. He was too young to wield a knife or stand by the roaring flames of the stove, but he was indispensable in his own right. He knew the precise moment to replace the flour container by the baker's station, could predict when the dish pit would overflow with dirty plates, and understood the unspoken language of the chef's glances. Eli's favorite chore was polishing the brass lantern that hung above the entrance. It was the restaurant's namesake and talisman, a relic from a bygone era. Each evening, it cast a warm golden glow over the threshold, welcoming patrons with its timeless light. Eli treated it with reverence, as if the lantern's shine was a reflection of his own efforts. The polishing cloth became an extension of his hand, and he worked in steady, circular motions until the brass gleamed like liquid gold. Though the boy's role seemed confined to the mundane, Eli imbued his tasks with a quiet artistry. When he arranged the breadbasket on the tables, it wasn't merely an act of placing loaves, it was the creation of a tableau. The folds of napkins were sculpted into crisp peaks, and the butter pats were aligned with geometric precision. Every detail, no matter how insignificant it seemed, was a stitch in the fabric of the lantern's ambiance. The rhythm of the restaurant became Eli's own. He moved through the hours with a tireless energy, his small frame darting between tables and counters, a perpetual motion that kept the establishment humming. His world was contained within those walls, and yet to Eli, it felt boundless. Each table was a stage, each plate a story, and he, the unseen hand orchestrating it all. As days turned into months, Eli began to understand the deeper currents that coursed through the lantern. He observed the ebb and flow of guests, the subtle dynamics of their interactions. There was the older gentleman who always ordered the same soup, the couple who lingered over dessert as if time had slowed just for them, and the lone writer who filled napkins with hurried scrawls. Eli's keen eyes absorbed it all, and though he was invisible to the diners, he became attuned to their unspoken needs. A water glass refilled here, a forgotten fork replaced there, small acts that rippled outwards, unseen but impactful. The seasons shifted, and with them, the lantern adapted. In the bloom of spring, Eli helped arrange wildflowers in vases, their colors a mirror of the season's vitality. Summer brought open windows and the sound of distant cicadas, and Eli's tasks expanded to include sweeping the outdoor patio. Autumn was his favorite, when the air was crisp and leaves tumbled in fiery cascades. He delighted in raking them into piles by the entrance, creating a frame of nature's own artistry. Winter transformed the lantern into a refuge, its windows fogged with warmth and its interior aglow with festive decorations. Eli, bundled in a scarf too large for his slight frame, would shovel snow from the walkway, his breath rising in plumes like tiny clouds. But it wasn't just the seasons that marked the passage of time. It was Eli's growth. His hands, once clumsy, became deft. His steps, once hesitant, grew sure. He learned to anticipate the rhythms of the restaurant, to predict its needs before they arose. The lantern, in turn, seemed to acknowledge his presence in subtle ways. The chefs left an extra slice of cake on the counter for him. The hostess offered him a wink as she arranged the seating chart, and even the brass lantern seemed to glow a little brighter under his care. One evening, as the last guest departed and the restaurant settled into its nocturnal stillness, Eli lingered. The lantern felt different in those hours, its energy subdued but not extinguished. He walked among the empty tables, his footsteps muffled by the plush carpet, and let his fingers trail across the polished surfaces. The restaurant, stripped of its daily chaos, revealed its essence to him. It wasn't just a place of work, it was a living entity, a mosaic of countless stories, and Eli was its quiet guardian. As he reached the entrance, his gaze fell on the brass lantern. The cloth was still in his hand, and he hesitated for a moment before beginning his nightly ritual. The golden light reflected in his eyes, casting shadows that danced across his face. He worked slowly, methodically, as if the act held a significance beyond its simplicity. When he stepped back to admire his work, the lantern shone with a brilliance that seemed to outshine the stars outside. Years later, the lantern would still stand on that bustling corner, its wooden sign weathered but proud. Patrons would come and go, their laughter and stories weaving new threads into the restaurant's tapestry. Yet among the countless faces and fleeting moments, one constant would remain: the memory of a boy who had poured his heart into the fabric of that place. For Eli, the lantern was more than a restaurant. It was a world unto itself, a sanctuary where he had found purpose and belonging. And though he would grow and venture beyond its walls, a part of him would always remain, glowing like the brass lantern above the door, a testament to his unwavering spirit and the quiet beauty of his toil.